Today we are going to start our chapter number 4 of History, Thinkers, Beliefs and Buildings, which basically focuses on the cultural development of the period 600 BCE to 600 CE. The sources that historians use to reconstruct this exciting world of ideas and beliefs include Buddha, Jaina and Brahminical texts as well as large and impressive body of material remains including monuments and inscriptions. Among the best preserved monument of this time is the stupa at Sachi, which is a major focus of our chapter. In this chapter, we shall go through a long journey across 1,000 years to read about philosophers and their attempts to understand the world they inhabited, and our focus would be on the Buddhism and Jainism religions and their development. Now let's see how the Sachi Stup was preserved. 19th century Europeans were very interested in the stupa at Sachi. In fact, the French sought Shahjahan Begum, who was then the ruler of Bhopal, to take away the eastern gateway which was best preserved to be displayed in museum in France. For a while some Englishmen also wanted to do the same. The rulers of Bhopal, Shah Jahan Begum, and her successor, Sultan Jahan Begum, provided money for the preservation of the ancient site. She funded the museum that was built there as well as the guest house where famous archaeologist John Marshall lived. She also funded the publication of the volumes of John Marshall. The preservation of Sachi Stup is attributed to the Begums of Bhopal. The first millennium BCE is often regarded as a turning point in the world history because in this period we see the emergence of thinkers in various parts of the world like Zoroaster in Iran, Kongzi in China, Socrates, Plato and Aristotle in Greece, and Mahavira and Gautam Buddha in India. All of them tried to understand the mystery of existence and the relationship between human beings and the universe. There was also the time when new kingdoms and cities developed all over the world. This was the time when social and economic life was changing in a variety of ways in Indian Gangetic region as well. Now we are going to trace back the sacrificial traditions that existed before the time that we are going to read further. The early tradition basically included the Vedic traditions. The Rig Veda consisted of hymns in praise of a variety of deities, especially Agni, Indra and Soma. Earlier, the worship was based on nature. Many of the hymns which are written in Rig Veda were chanted when sacrifices were performed, where people prayed for cattle, sun, good health and long life, etc. More elaborate sacrifices such as Rajasuya and Ashwamedha were performed by chiefs and kings who depended on Brahmana priests to conduct these rituals. After the Vedic period, we see post-Vedic period or the later Vedic period, and then we see the coming up of Upanishads, and further we see the development of the religion like Jainism and Buddhism. First of all, we are going to discuss Jainism. The important idea of Jainism is that entire world is animated. That means even stones, rocks and water have life. Non-injury to living beings, especially to humans, animals, plants and insects is central to Jainism philosophy. In fact, the principle of ahimsa, emphasized within Jainism, has left its mark on Indian thinking. According to Jaina teaching, the cycle of birth and rebirth is shaped through one's karma. Asceticism and penance are required to free oneself from the cycle of karma. There were various rules for the Jaina monks that they needed to follow. First, Jaina monks and nuns took 5 vows, which included abstaining from killing, to abstain from stealing, abstain from lying, to observe celibacy or the brahmacharya, and to abstain from possessing property. Jaina literature and spread of Jainism is attributed to the disciples of the Tirthankaras who were the Jaina monks. The teaching of Mahavira was recorded by his disciples. These were often in form of stories which could appeal to the ordinary people. Jaina scholars produced a variety of literature in variety of languages such as Prakrit, Sanskrit and Tamil. For many centuries, manuscripts when texts were carefully preserved in libraries attached to the Jaina temples. Now we are going to study about the Buddhism. Buddhism grew rapidly both during the lifetime of Buddha and after his death, as it appealed to many people who were dissatisfied with the existing religious practices and the dominance of the Brahmanas. Buddha's message included metta and karuna, which actually spread across the subcontinent and beyond, which includes the area like Central Asia, China, Korea, Japan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, Indonesia. Buddha's teachings have been reconstructed by carefully editing, translating, and analyzing various Buddhist texts. Life of Buddha. According to this tradition, Siddhartha was the original name of Buddha and he was the son of a chief of Sakya clan. He had a sheltered upbringing within the palace, avoiding the harsh realities of life. One day he persuaded his charioteer to take him into city. His first journey into the world outside was very traumatic. He was deeply anguished when he saw an old man, a sick man, and a corpse, that is, a dead body. He realized in that moment that the decay and destruction of human body was inevitable. He also saw a homeless mendicant who had come to terms with the old age and disease, and soon after facing the reality of life, he left the palace and set out in search of his own truth. Thus he became the Buddha or the enlightened one. Now let us see what are the central teachings of the Buddhism. According to the Buddhist philosophy, the world is transient and is always changing, and there is nothing permanent or eternal in it. Within this transient world, sorrow is intrinsic to human existence. By following the path of moderation between severe penance and self indulgence, human beings can come out of these worldly troubles. The Buddha regarded the social world as the creation of humans rather than of divine origin. Therefore, he advised kings and Gahapatis, who were the head of certain tribes, to be human and ethical towards common people. He said that individual efforts were expected to transform social relations. The Buddha emphasized individual agency and righteous action as the means to escape the cycle of rebirth and attain self realization. Therefore, the center of the Buddha philosophy is that everything is related to our materialistic wants, and once we forget all these materialistic wants, we can attain salvation through our own efforts. Soon there grew a body of disciples of Buddha, and he also founded a Sangha, which was an organization of monks who too became teachers of Dhamma. These monks lived simply, possessing only the essential requisites for survival, such as a bowl to receive food once a day from the laity. As they lived on alms, they were known as bhikkhus. Initially, only men were allowed into Sangha, but later women also became an important part of Sangha. The Buddha's followers came from many social groups. These included kings, wealthy men, and Gahapatis, and also humble folks like workers, slaves, craftspeople, etc. Once within the Sangha, all were regarded as equal, having shed their earlier social identities on becoming the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. The internal functioning of Sangha was based on the traditions of Ganas and Sangha, where consensus was arrived through discussion. So therefore the people were attracted to Buddhism because they did not discriminate amongst anyone on the basis of their birth, and therefore the Buddhism became a popular religion in the ancient Indian subcontinent. Thus, Buddhism grew rapidly both during the lifetime of Buddha and after his death, as it appealed to many people dissatisfied with existing religious practices during that time. We have seen that Buddha ideas and practices emerged out of a process of dialogue with other traditions as well, which includes those of Brahmins, Jainas, and several other prevailing religions as well. Therefore, these religions did not develop in isolation and were a product of discussions of the contemporaries.